Now you see, when the soul attaches itself to the body before birth, it attaches to the central nervous system. All right? Now that is where apparently we have, well, that's the soul's connection to the body. That's where it connects. We have all kinds of cellular memory within our body. Our DNA, it passes from generation to generation to generation to generation. Now, our subconscious mind knows a lot of this, but our conscious mind doesn't. And then there's a lot that's in there that neither can recognize, so basically it's dismissed. But the body has memory. The cells have memory, which they call cellular memory. And apparently the body knows how to heal itself, can heal itself. It can create physical changes on its own if it's just allowed to or given a command to do so. And my understanding is that we are coming to that point where things like that are going to begin to happen. We already know that there are children being born in the world today that have 3 strands of DNA, some even more. Has there been tampering? Has there been intervention? In some cases I would have to say probably yes, but in other cases I would say no. It's the body beginning to overcome all of its limitations because of a desire to continue to thrive. The body will make adjustments, which is why so many different races are so interested in us, because our bodies are incredibly adaptable to environments and changes, regardless of the fact that we've been manipulated. We're very strong, and our desire to continue to live is very, very strong. And that's not simply just will, that's also the body wanting to continue. So that's what I have to say about that.
All right. Alex, I got a tough question for you. How do you answer skeptics who cite a number of predictions that you've made in the past about future events that have failed to come to pass when you suggested they would?
Well, first, Rick, I'm glad a lot of them didn't happen, quite frankly. I think we would be in a very different world than we are today. Number 2, many of those possible events, when they were presented to me, were presented as possibilities, or a very strong probability. In my immaturity, when lecturing and putting this information out in the 90s, I was running a lot of fear. I was being harassed by governmental agencies. I was being followed. My phones were tapped. There were a lot of things going on. I was losing jobs left and right because I was putting out this type of information. There were a lot of things going on in my life at the time. I'm the only one who could take responsibility for that. If I had to do one thing over, I would have taken those possibilities and I would have presented them more, or try to present them more in a positive light and say, this is a possibility. This is a probability that they said could occur here and here and here. Now, I know several of the events did not occur because of intervention. I know that. And intervention is still occurring, okay? And I'm thrilled that they didn't happen. For the others, I don't know. I don't know if it was consciousness. I don't know if people being aware of the possibility of the events and they prayed, they saw a different outcome. I simply don't have that answer. I don't know. But of course it's something that you have to look at, and the criticism is justifiable.
Is there one example you can give me of where an intervention occurred that changed one of those events that you had?
Nuclear weapons detonation. There's been lots of intervention that has occurred, and I can tell you, as of 4 weeks ago, there was still intervention going on in that regard. And that's a fact.
Thank God for it. Now, is it wise for anyone to try to predict future events? Would you do it again, or would you advise anybody else who's in contact with ETs to predict future events, or is that something that you consider unwise at this point?
You know, I'm still growing, I'm still learning, I'm still maturing, I hope. As far as wise, what it tells us is that the future is never set, which means to me we can create anything that we want as long as we all, or a majority of us, have a very focused intent. That's what that tells me, and I'm extremely encouraged by that if we can get enough people together to decide on what kind of a future, what kind of a life and planet we want. I mean, this is clearly, you know, the law of attraction at work here. The future's not set. It could also be that maybe these things coming up in 2012 with the bouncing off the galactic plane, maybe if enough of us get really focused and we surround the Earth with enough love and energy, that nothing will happen. You know, I don't have those answers. I just don't. You know, everybody thinks, God, you've been talking to extraterrestrials for 35, 38 years. You know, you've got all this knowledge. That's true, but you know, I have just as many questions as well. You know, some of the conversations we've had have been extremely one-sided, where I'm shared information and I'm not able to ask enough questions. So,
you're just human.
Yes, more so than ever. More so than ever.
There's a episode in George Washington's life that has a lot of meaning to you. The third trial of George Washington, his vision at Valley Forge. Why is that so important to you?
Well, when I was a little boy, I always had a thing for George Washington. My dad took us to Mount Vernon, and I just loved it. And I can remember sitting in his backyard, looking down the Potomac. And you know how you just know you've been there before? You know, I'd been there before, and I was extremely moved by that. And it's hard to put into words. Well, when I started talking to the A's, Morine and Phaseus were very adamant about me studying that and looking up that prophecy. And I've asked, and they just said, well, it could be very, very important in America's future, especially the direction that it's moving now. That this could be a probability. So I studied it because they know that I have a passion for the founding of the United States and the principle, especially the principles for which it was founded on. A constitutional republic, a Bill of Rights, because those documents and America literally created a new domain of knowing that wasn't here in the world before. Before, it was always aristocrats and monarchies that ruled the world, and governments. And America changed that now forever. So I saw that, you know, and I recognized that as a little boy as an amazing turning point. And the more I learned from the A's, the more I realized how important that actually was for humanity, to actually have the opportunity of self-government. Unfortunately, there's been a tremendous amount of negative intervention, and they know us probably better than we know ourselves, and they've been able to lull us back into sleep, lull us back into consumerism, into forgetfulness by dumbing down everybody through our school systems. You know, and now they don't even really teach any of that. So they felt very importantly to let me know about that. And if you look at the third trial, it's a remarkable event. I certainly hope it doesn't happen. I don't want it to happen. But I just shared that with you because I thought it was important that, you know, that they would not only come this way, but they would be adamant that I research that and I look into it. So that's why I shared it with you. I mean, it was something that was shared, I think, in 1834 or 1838. And, you know,